We are back. So this week we're gonna carry on a light spectrum and all those kind of things. We have literally got a little change of guard, so to speak, and probably hopeful that US is gonna lead everyone in a health perspective different way. So, do you want to open up more about like opsins? What the hell are they? Because you mention them every single time we talk about light, pretty much. And so mechanics of this, what can where can it be used? What's good, bad, whatever future kind of direction based on these things that we can hope to see.
Yeah, yeah. So first, let's just generally just say what are opsins, right? Opsins are essentially photoreceptors, right? And we vaguely talked about some of these and where they're located in our previous video. Like melanopsin is located in the brain, in the eyes, in the skin, right? And some of this information is like really new. Like, for example, melanopsin in particular, we did not know that it was located in the skin until like late 2017, right? So
Wow.
these, yeah, so like this is fairly new in terms of like science, right? This is not old information. This is fairly new. So opsins are things that are going to be looked into more and more. And there are some really cutting edge technologies that we'll talk about briefly today. But essentially, opsins are integrated in all parts of the body, some more dispersed than others. But what we have and are starting to find out is that the three main opsins, melanopsin, rhodopsin, uh, neuropsin and encephalopsin, so four of them, sorry. Rhodopsin is mainly in the eyes, but melanopsin, neuropsin, and encephalopsin are actually located pretty much everywhere in the body, including the skin, right? So this goes back to kind of what I've said before in previous videos, where the skin and the brain are actually intertwined, entangled, quantum entangled, same atoms, same type of stuff. It's wirelessly talking back and forth. These are some of the things that are doing it. The opsins that are located in the brain, the eyes, and the skin are all talking together at the same time. And their function is to signal G protein signaling. What does that mean? That means that there are secondary signals that are going on when these opsins get activated. Secondary signals in terms of, hey, turn this organ system up or turn this organ system down because we've sensed this type of light at this time of day, right? And so that's when you start to paint the picture of like, oh, light is actually controlling the circadian system. And the circadian system, like we've talked about before, is not necessarily when you sleep and when you wake. It's about how the body coordinates all the functions of the body, right? And so it's being controlled by these different wavelengths because different wavelengths activate different opsins, right? So that's the general overview of what an opsin is, what it's doing. There's obviously more science to that, but we don't need to get into that kind of detail. Now, because science has started to find all this out, there are some therapies, particularly um, optogenetics, that's starting to be looked into a lot more in the last 2 or 3 years. And basically, what that is they're taking well the studies, right? The way that they're doing optogenetics right now is pretty crude and kind of invasive. And then basically, what they're doing is they're taking some kind of optical fiber, drilling a hole in some in a subject, a mice or something like that, in their brain or in part of their body, and bringing in an optical fiber that sends. They dictate, are we going to send blue light? Are we going to send red light? Are we going to send green light to activate certain opsins? And when they do that, they've started to notice, hey, behavior changes happen, hunger changes happen, activity levels change now that they're actively targeting these opsins with light directly into the tissues that they're trying to control. So what I'm saying is you can be controlled by light. Enough light or strong enough light will control behavior, feeding behavior, activity behavior, sleep behavior. All the behaviors you can think of are being controlled by light with this thing called optogenetics. And so they call it that because they're sending optical signaling, which is controlling the genes. Go back to our gene talk. Genes mean way less than people think because they're controlled by other things, mostly light, mostly your environmental light. So I wanted to highlight that because of the what you opened with, which was a change in the government here in the United States. Yes, Trump won, but it's not so much about Trump. It's about he's got in his cabinet, who's he's associated with. For example, he's been talking to RFK Jr. and Nicole Shanahan. I happen to know from personal sources that have talked to them that have delivered this information to Nicole Shanahan and to RFK Jr. And Nicole herself actually has a very personal story with this. Like she has a daughter that's autistic, born autistic, but she's also previously married to Sergey Brin, who is the owner of Google. They have the patents for all the screen technology on every single modern electronic device. She is a patent attorney. She did the patents for all of these. When she got told all this information, she went digging through all the patents and found out, oh, they're literally targeting certain opsins with the screen technology embedded in every single iPhone, embedded in every single Android phone and laptop, etc. They're controlling behavior with light. We already know that, but everybody's just like, oh, it's the screen, it's the screen. And technically they're right, but it's deeper than that. The screen is putting out specific frequencies of light, targeting specific opsins, because if you give enough light to those receptors, you control genetics, you control behavior. So with the change of Trump coming in and knowing that he has RFK Jr. coming in, and RFK Jr. and Nicole Shanahan are very intertwined and know all this information, there are some things that I'm very hopeful to come in the future in terms of, number one, probably starting to disassociate the state from health. Right now, in just about every country, the state and the healthcare system are intertwined, and we know how that what that led to and what it is leading to, in terms of your sovereignty of being able to make health decisions for yourself. Something as simple as in America, some people might not know this, and maybe in the UK, you can't even buy, maybe, I don't know, right, incandescent light bulbs, right? Like in America, there are certain states where you cannot buy incandescent light bulbs. You can't even order them. They won't ship them to that state. You have to buy
This is
them
very
and
interesting because just yesterday I talked to somebody like it's not even that long when we still had them, and so many people have never even seen them in their lives, like
yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Anybody
was talking
born
to one of my friends that I was walking outside to go look after my cows, chickens, and whatever, with a gas lamp.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like literally filling up little gas,
Mhm,
lighting it up with a match, and walking just to get where I needed to go in the middle of the night. So people go like,
mhm.
"You're weird. How old are you?" I'm like, "I'm not that old. I was just born in Soviet Union where you had nothing."
Right, right. Yeah, and to tell you the truth, that's the incandescent light bulb phasing out. That started in 2003, right? So anybody born after 2003, they might not know what an incandescent light bulb is, right? Whereas, I'm also not that old. Most of my life has been with incandescent light bulbs, right? So this change of genetic targeting with light is only recent, basically since smartphones have been invented. And now we know how and why, right? There are patents out for this type of technology, and like I said, there are certain people that have now been put in the right places in politics to be able to make changes. Things that I'm hopeful for is, number one, the start and the disassociation of separating the state from the healthcare system, so that you have more options and so that you have more ability to get the right information and are not pigeonholed into whatever the doctor says goes, because that's the only thing that my insurance will cover, or that's the only thing that I'm allowed to actually use as medical therapy, and those types of things. Other things that I expect is the slow reintroduction of trying to phase out all of these policies that have been put in to allow people to use better lighting in their own homes and in possibly even in commercial settings. Yes.
So when you talk
uh
about better lighting, can you kind of elaborate? Because we have talked about it as well, that it's not always a bad thing to have the modern light. So what I'm thinking is that you're talking about this is, hey, you will be able to distinctively change the lighting in your bedroom, in your office, in your living room. So, and now that you will have this information available, you'll know that if my bedroom has these lamps, I'm going to sleep better. If my office has these lamps, I'm going to have more creativity, and so on and so forth. Is that where you're going with this?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Like the more that this types of information gets out that we're talking about of how different light frequencies elicit different effects and things of that nature. And we've also vaguely talked about this with exploiting dopamine, right? Like as far as like, hey, yes, we talk about blue lights being harmful and stuff like that, but that's only because you're using them all the time because it's the only light available because you can't go and buy other lights unless they're super expensive, like my red light therapy lamp behind me or whatever, right? But an incandescent light bulb, for example, should cost you $1. And immediately it is not just blue light, it's infrared, it's the full spectrum, so it activates things correctly. And knowing this type of information allows you to exploit things to your advantage. And knowing the information is step one, right? Because as you and I know, we have clients and things of that nature, and they're like, well, how do I get those lights? Like that's a problem sometimes for some people living in certain situations because of laws and policies put in by governments that, in my opinion, know this information, right? If Google has patents on specific frequency technology to control behavior, you don't think that governments know this information? Of
It's
course they do.
probably interesting as well that I think a lot of people genuinely don't know, and they are just blinded by this energy efficiency stuff. So, but then
Well, you're probably right in terms of passing the law, right? The votes, right? Like the people casting their votes probably don't know, but the people that propose the proposal do know.
hmm.
Do you know? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Obviously, it's like with nutrition, like they're not making it to be healthy; they're making it to be addictive. You want it to pay in any way, shape, or form. The cook is gonna cook meal that is great in a taste, flavor, not what's something extremely good for your health.
Exactly.
I have a lot of clients who go their own cooks, and I'm like, he's a cook, he's not a nutritionist. You need to understand the difference. If he makes you a chicken salad, most likely they're gonna add a lot of olive oil, a lot of honey, a lot of other condiments that have a lot of calories, and they would never tell you that because they
Right.
are aware themselves.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're 100% right. And so that then goes to the following, which is if if uh if you're being told the information, right, or at least being allowed to seek out that information and know that it's public now, and people in politics know about it, and people that are proposing proposals know about it, then it's much more likely to have positive change for health outcomes. I mean, the whole campaign thing with Trump went from "Make America Great Again" to "Make America Healthy Again," right? There's a reason for that. All modern, including America, and most modern first world countries are not healthy, right? And most people blame the food, but it's all of it. It's just like you said, right? The manufacturer of foods, for not cooks, right? But the people that manufacture foods, which is what most people consume these days. It's not whole foods, it's not real foods, it's manufactured foods. Their whole underlying goal is not to feed you nutrition, it's to make money. Right. So when policies come into play in terms of, let's just talk about light, because that's what we're focusing on in this episode. Um, if if Google has a patent for screen technology that makes you that controls behavior by addicting you to the screen. They get paid money not by you, but by people that want to advertise on the device. And if their job is to keep you on the device as much as possible to get you in front of as many ads, as many products as possible, those people, those companies are paying Google to keep you on their device. Think of it this way. If you sell something in a newspaper, but people stop reading the newspaper, you're not going to sell anything, right? But if you sell something and you start advertising it on a phone, on a screen, and the company that makes the screen or the phone can keep you on the screen, now you're going to make a lot of money. So you're willing to pay the manufacturer that keeps you there. They have essentially found a hack to addict people and control behavior. And more importantly, they've also found that certain types of light induce certain behaviors like overeating, seeking out sweets. So now what does that lead to? It leads to bad health outcomes. Well, if you're a politician and you know some of this stuff, you might go, you know what? We should pass some policies to make sure that we inundate more people with more of this frequency. And on the side, I'm going to invest in shares and stocks in the healthcare system, for example, right? In
Yeah,
Pfizer, in
you're going
Moderna.
deep rabbit holes there now.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
So
this
can
is
you
the type
explain
of,
me more on like is there a specific wavelengths kind of that stimulate addictive behavior and this and that we know of? I'm pretty sure you saw the study as well where they were recording kids in a classroom where they changed their bulbs and literally within a couple of weeks the most uh, naughty kids, so to speak, they were sitting in the front and being the best students. Like
absolutely. Yes, I've
change,
seen that study,
change,
and I've
change
seen the video.
yeah.
There's an
So
actual video
what's
recording.
happening there? What's because I've seen I work I prefer working with people who have kids, and more often than not, their behavior change a lot when those kids spend more time outside, away
Mhm.
from iPods and whatnot. When they're on iPods, they're always, "Hey, mom, I want Kellogg's Frosties, I want this, I want that." And when you actually engage them in activities that are fun, takes them more outside, they 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 change mentally, psychologically, they just behave better. And they start craving slightly different foods as well. So is there something that we can kind of look forward? Because we're not going to get rid of screens. It's just not going to happen.
Mhm.
But is there
Well,
any kind of maybe time of the day when it's best to use it? Or maybe if a kid is on an iPad, maybe I can put him in a room with different lighting. Maybe when I'm working in an office, I should work certain amount of hours and then go and do something in between. How can we use this information for benefit, not just think it's all bad and everyone is trying to do.
yeah, and that's the thing is that it's hard to know exactly which options are being inundated
Is
more
that
than
because you
anything.
said it's still quite new stuff, right?
Right. Like there isn't anything pinpointing the end target. What we do know is this from specifically some of the studies that you've shown in particular, we know the type of light that induces the type of behavior, right? So we can't really go, oh, this particular option in this particular part of the body is what's creating that behavior. We can't do that quite yet, but we can say, hey, this type of light induces this type of behavior. We just don't know all the different roadways that actually get activated. Let's put it that way, right? And so, yes, there are some things that you can do, right? Number one, we talked about a spectrometer, right? A spectrometer will let you know the type of light that's going to induce the type of behavior that is going to make you crave things, make you more fidgety, make you more just want to move around. And that is bright blue light in the wavelengths of 405 to 460 nanometers. So it's anything in the blue and the green spectrum, which happens to be the light technology that's patented. Now, because it's patented, we don't know exactly what frequency they're using, but with a
Can we
spectrometer.
check it? Can we measure it ourselves?
Yeah, you can measure it yourself with a spectrometer. And that's what I'm saying. With a spectrometer, you would be able, and they're going to vary slightly, right? They're going to vary, but it's going to be in that range. That type of light induces that type of behavior. Now, that type of light exists in nature, right? It exists in the sun, and it mainly exists during the middle part of the day. That's why when you go outside in the middle part of the day, you're going to feel hunger after a few hours of being there. You're going to be more active. You're going to want to move around more. But at the same time, you're getting a lot of infrared, right? And you're getting a lot of non-visual light, right, which is heat essentially from the sun and things of that nature, which then power other parts of the body for energy production and things of that nature. See, the reason why you don't get quite as hungry when you go outside versus I'm indoors all the time, even though they're both have the same types of light, is exactly that. The red light from the sun is adding ATP just by being outside. So what if you subtract the red, right? Like say I'm indoors in a gym setting, for example, with lots of really bright lights. I'm going to feel energized. I'm going to be pumped up. I'm going to be working out. But then say you're a trainer and you get done with your workout, you eat some food and you stay in the same environment, you're going to get hungry much sooner than you should have because there isn't any infrared light. So that means the ATP production is not as high as it should. You have to supplement that somehow. How do you supplement it? With food, right? So a normal average person, right, may work out in the morning, may deplete themselves a little bit, but they don't get any infrared light. Now all of a sudden they're hungrier than they should be for the rest of the day because they're essentially in an energy deficit because there's no infrared light. So
I also
to
notice a lot is that people who don't spend much time outside, they usually don't have really good digestion. And their response to food is they are constantly slightly bloated, inflamed. It might not be seen in their behavior when they go to toilet, for example, but it's just their body looks slightly puffy all the time. Because that
yeah.
is lack of infrared light as well.
Yeah, because see, more to exactly what you noticed, their body looks slightly poofy. What does that mean? It's inflammation. What is inflammation? It is retention of fluids, mainly water, right? What is water? Water is a red light chromophore. You can literally Google that, right? So your body is trying to extract as much infrared light that it can. So it upregulates retention of water so that it can gather more infrared light from any source, right? So yeah, you're 100% right. People that spend a lot of time indoors without supplementing some kind of infrared light are going to definitely experience a more inflamed effect, right? And it's I don't like that word because inflamed means that there's an infection or that there's an injury or something necessarily wrong. And it's not always like that. You could be inflamed and not necessarily have anything physically wrong with you. It's just your body trying to adapt to the environment that you're exposing it to. And it's going, hey, you're missing infrared light. We need to upregulate any system that can gather more infrared light. And the most powerful red light chromophore in the body is water. And so it upregulates that system of retention. And yeah, and this goes even further in pregnancy. When the female is pregnant, there's a lot of retention. Why? Because she needs way more energy than anybody else. Yes, she's going to eat more food, but there's no way that a female human consumes enough food to grow another person. It just doesn't work that way. It's happening through environmental stimulation of gathering more external environmental energy and signaling to power all the processes of cell proliferation and mitochondrial biogenesis and the creation of another human, right? So we see this all the time, but people are just not putting all of that together, right?
Yeah, and even from like anecdotal perspective, I see my recovery rate is way faster if I spend another 20, 40 minutes just outside after my training sessions. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that, no amount of food and sleep is going to increase my ability to recover. But if I go for a light walk or even just sit outside, like in the summer, I would just sit in the grass for like 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or so, and I feel less sore much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're powering up all the cellular processes that need energy to do that, right? And you're just not like if you were a gorilla, you would eat enough food to recover from that. But a gorilla spends 8 hours a day eating, right? Like that's what
I
they
think it
do.
was statistically like 87% of their lives they eat.
Yeah, right. So you don't have that. You don't have like humans evolved a slightly different. We're let's put it this way. We're more advanced, and the way that we've advanced is blatantly obvious. We don't have hair on our surfaces. The reason for that is it allows the skin to now be a second organ for energy gathering purposes. And so let's tie this all up kind of pretty good as far as like a broad recommendation. Anytime that you're getting red light therapy, whether that's from the sun or an infrared light device or an incandescent light bulb, you want more skin exposed. Anytime you are having to be in an environment like a gym environment or a office environment where you know that there's only blue light present, you want less skin exposed, less surface exposed to that. You want to dress up. That circumvents the activation of melanopsin and encephalopsin and rhodopsin. So your behavior changes get dimmed down. And when you get infrared light, you want more skin exposed in general so that your positive behavior changes get ramped up. So in other words, you're trying to kind of shift how much your behavior changes to the positive versus the negative. Just like you said, we're not going to be able to get rid of screens and that type of stuff. So that's where blue light blocking glasses comes in handy. That's where being able to know the difference between different types of light, which again, you don't really need a special device. You can just, see, hey, this is way more red dominant or way more blue dominant. But when it comes to LED technology, it's almost all going to be between 420 to 480 or so, which is going to activate these opsins very precisely, right? And that's really the downturn is you need to add in the light spectrum that's missing so that you can continue to function correctly and not have major behavioral changes happen to you.
Can you talk about more about eyes? Because different lights, different spectrums and whatnot. When I was growing up, hey, if you watch too much TV, your eyes gonna go bad and whatnot. And now people are afraid of using red light therapy because they think it's gonna upset their eyes. So we kind of see the studies show completely opposite side. So is there something that people need to be aware of, or is there? Because first of all, I see a lot of people losing their eyesight quality if they drink a lot of alcohol and eat a lot of garbage, and they don't.
Yes.
So is there something linked to that? And if so, can we improve our eyesight with light?
Well, more than likely, again, this is because of how I kind of put everything together, right? Like it's never separate, right? You mentioned alcohol and eating a lot of junk. That's a behavior change, right? So what that also tells me about that person is they probably interact with a lot of blue light. So the coincidence of hey, these people that eat junk food a lot and have a lot of alcohol consumption are also having eyesight problem. It's probably related to this blue light, all of these light frequencies that we talked about, 420 all the way to 480, 450, they are damaging to the eye. Now, we've talked about this in terms of DHA, right? DHA repairs the eye in the presence of UV light and infrared light. So blue light damages it. In sunlight, that's supposed to happen, but it also has red and UV, which then repairs it. It turns on mTOR, right? We talked about that in the last episode. UV light, 380 nanometer light, turns on mTOR, which is an anabolic process of repair. Most people associate it with muscle building, but it doesn't have to be muscles. It can be any tissue in the body. When it's signaled by 380 nanometer light, UVA light, it signals the repair processes. So in order to keep your eyes healthy, you need two light frequencies: infrared to make sure the ATP production is nice and high so that cellular activity can be flowing correctly. And you need some 380 nanometer UVA light to turn on mTOR, even though you haven't done anything. So most people in the fitness world say, oh, you turn on mTOR by eating protein and exercising, which is true. But how do you do that for your eye? How do you do that for your brain, right? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to eat protein and all of a sudden your eyes get better. Like, you're not going to exercise your eye and turn on mTOR. Other biological organs of the body, other organ systems that are not muscle tissue, depend on light signaling to turn on the mTOR for that specific tissue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So is there any other medical applications where we can possibly expect light being used in future?
Yeah.
Maybe
So it's yeah. If you follow what I just said about like specific, like we are now just experimenting with optogenetics, right? Which is actual targeting of these melanopsin receptors and things of that nature with light. More than likely, you're going to find the ability to kind of like laser therapy and things of that nature that target very specific hair removal or very specific surgeries that can be very precise. You're probably going to start finding optogenetics be the line of thinking of, hey, we can deliver very precise tissue specific light to repair your eye, for example, just through light signaling, or repair brain damage, or induce reversal of dementia and Alzheimer's. We're already seeing some experiments with intranasal cranial simulation through red light therapy for Alzheimer's that seems to be very promising. That is a form of optogenetics. So you're going to start seeing a lot more of that, of introducing light or different ways to introduce light in very specific parts of the body to induce very specific effects. Another one that's old is UVBI, so UVB bloody radiation therapy, which is something that you've known about, back in the Soviet Union, where they're literally introducing UV light into your blood. Right now, that's very low hanging, doesn't take a lot of, it's not really complicated, but it's not super targeted. It's more general, right? It's like for the whole body at that point, because your blood goes everywhere. And so there's going to be more precise targeting of genes and opsins with light therapy that's going to be through microfiber, or not microfiber, optical fibers and things of that nature. So you're going to see a lot more of that. And as of right now, it's just really new. So the best thing that you can do is just know this type of information and try to do the opposite of what manufacturers of these devices have done. Try to exploit it to your advantage.
So I'm going to drag you back to the rabbit hole. Do you think that we have less challenges now than expected because of in US who might be in charge for all the health and fitness stuff? Do you expect that it's going to be easier to make these kind of researchers studies?
I think it will be easier for the research side of things.
Right.
I think it's still an uphill battle for the consumer. The reason for that is there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of money involved in keeping you addicted to screens and keeping you that type of technology in every home and in every office building. So that will be slower. But here's the thing. The consumer is the one that drives everything, right? So the reason why they're making money is because you're unaware that they're controlling your behavior, and your behavior is purchasing that, right? They can't just, take your money without you being willing, right? And so the studies and things of that nature and the research will be the things that kind of lead the way, and people that are kind of in the know, like me and you, I personally spend way more time looking into what's going on with light, what's going on with research on light, what's going on with behavior modifications with light, and things. That's the type of research I'm looking at and searching for. Has nothing to do with nutrition and training or anything like that. Those types of things are secondary mechanisms to behavioral changes. And so those people like me, and there's more than a few, there's quite a few. And now that there are more of those people that know that information are going to be in politics and have ways to funnel money to that type of research, you're going to see the forefront in the research department or the research side first. And then smart consumers will lead the way in changing the consumer side of things. For example, you said we're not going to be able to get rid of screens. That's true. But that doesn't mean you can't choose manufacturers that are choosing not to make a screen that irradiates your eyes and face with specific frequencies. For example, Daylight Computer has come out with a screen technology, has no blue light in it. And in fact, it has infrared, and their second generation is going to have infrared and UVA 380 nanometer light. What did I just say about eye health? You need infrared and you need 380 nanometer light to induce correct functioning of the eyes and the brain. They are literally making that technology available. It is in its infancy, right? It's only one company right now. And if they're not successful, then they'll go bankrupt, right? Then that technology falls away. Hopefully
I've seen
more.
they are releasing like in little batches, aren't they? I've seen some.
Yeah, because they're so small, and because Google and other device manufacturers and the people with that money are not giving them money. They're basically having to find their own funding, right? And so that's why it's slower for that type of company, because they don't have the grants and the research and all of that type of stuff that's being funneled to them for that. But hopefully that type of stuff starts to change. I personally do have a daylight computer. It should actually be arriving next week for me, or maybe even possibly this week. And so I will, in our school group, I'll be doing a review on it and an unboxing on it and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we won't be able to be living in the modern world without screens. The type of screen that you choose will become more and more readily available for the smart consumer.
Yeah, so it sounds like we are in a better place where we can kind of actually sound less wacky, for the lack of better term, talking about all this, because it's not just, hey, I'm gonna go out in the sun and put my feet up and tan my you know what and expect great results. It's actually backed by science, and we see more and more results coming out. Just yesterday I was reading the study about like how they're linking bad light to cancer and all those kind of things. There's a lot of things coming out now, and hopefully we're moving in the right direction where we actually start looking after our health before it goes bad, instead of medicating side effects of bad behaviors.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly the paradigm that we're in right now, because that's exactly what makes money, right? It's not curing you before you, or not letting you get sick. It's, hey, we'll let you get sick and then we'll give you everything that you need to keep you going and keep you coming back, right? And that type of stuff starts in lots of different places, right? Again, we're in the nutrition and exercise and health aspect world. And ever since doing our videos, 3 years now, we're going to be going on 3 years now of doing our videos. That also has led us to know, environment, light environment. And that also links heavily with nutrition and training and how you're going to get the most out of all of these things.
Yeah, no, this is definitely something to think about. And appreciate your time as usual, David. This has been great content, and we'll dig deeper on all of this in the next video.
Awesome. Thank you.